What do you mean he's okay? Are you serious? He is. He's alive.
This thing soars magnificently. Well, not actually, but imagination fills the void. My father and I would mimic jet engines. Then he ceased forever, throat working hard. Kneeling down, leather creaking beneath him. The child's eyes, dark brown and haunted in a way that pierced deeply, gazed up. Close up, he noticed the boy was cleaner than his garments suggested. Someone still cared, even when they couldn't care for themselves. "Why are you selling this, Tommy?" The boy's lip trembled. He glanced toward the fence, then at his small hands. When he spoke, barely audible. "Mother hasn't eaten in 3 days. She claims she's not hungry, but I know the truth. She gives me everything. There's a small box of crackers remaining, and she keeps insisting she already ate, but I never witness her eating anything." His voice fractured. "I heard her sobbing last night when she thought I was sleeping. She was praying, asking God to help us. But I don't think God heard her. So I thought maybe you could hear me instead." Beyond the fence, in the shadow of an abandoned loading dock, he could barely make out a figure. A woman, thin as autumn leaves, sitting against the wall, with her head in her hands. She wore a business skirt that had seen better days, and a blouse with a stain she'd tried to wash out. Professional clothes for a world that had rejected her. Even from here, he could see her shoulders shaking. The large man had moved closer, his massive frame casting a shadow over the boy. "What happened to your father, son?" Tommy's grip on the airplane tightened until his knuckles went white. "He was a soldier, Army. He went to Afghanistan when I was 5. He said he'd come back and we'd finish building my model collection. We were going to do a B-17 next, the Flying Fortress. But the boy's voice broke completely. "He didn't come back the same way. He came back in a box with a flag on it. Mom says he was a hero. They gave her the flag at the funeral, and it's folded in a triangle in our apartment. Was in our apartment. We don't live there anymore." The group exchanged glances. Each of them understood loss. Each of them knew what it meant to lose a brother, a friend, a piece of yourself. "Where do you live now?" someone asked gently, crouching down nearby. Tommy pointed past the loading dock. "There's a place under the overpass. It's not so bad. Mom put up some cardboard to make walls. We have sleeping bags. It's just we don't have food anymore." The words hit like punches. A veteran's widow and child living under an overpass in America. In a city with glass towers scraping the sky, and restaurants throwing away more food in a day than this family saw in a week. "Tell us what happened," another said, his gravelly voice thick with controlled anger. "All of it!" Tommy looked at his mother again, then back at the group. Maybe it was something in their faces, the same righteous fury his father used to get when he saw injustice that made him trust them. Or maybe he was just tired of carrying the weight alone. "Mom worked at this big company," he began. "Meridian Properties. She managed buildings, helped people find apartments, fixed things when they broke. She was good at it. People liked her. She got awards and everything." His small chest puffed with pride for a moment. "After Dad died, she kept the job because she said she had to take care of me, had to make him proud." "What changed?" someone asked. "There was this man, Mr. Crane. He was her boss's boss or something. He'd come by her office and say things, tell her she was pretty, ask her to dinner. Mom always said no. Told him she wasn't interested, that she just wanted to do her job. But he kept doing it." Tommy's face twisted with a confusion too adult for his years. Why do grown-ups do that? When someone says no, why don't they listen? None of the group answered. They all knew why. They'd all seen it before. Then one day, Mr. Crane tried to grab her in the parking garage after work. She pushed him away and told him she was going to report him. He laughed. He actually laughed and said nobody would believe her over him. Tommy's hands were shaking now. Mom went to HR the next day. She had bruises on her arms from where he grabbed her. She filed a complaint and everything. They said they'd investigate. Let me guess, someone rumbled. They investigated her right out of a job. Tommy nodded. 2 weeks later, they fired her. Said her performance was slipping. Said clients were complaining. But Mom showed me the reviews. Everyone loved her. It was all lies. She tried to fight it, but Mr. Crane had lawyers. We didn't. And then... Then she couldn't get another job. She'd apply anywhere, and at first they'd be interested. But then, after they made phone calls to check her references, they'd say the position was filled. It happened 10 times, 15 times, 20 times. The boy's voice was flat now, reciting facts he'd heard whispered late at night when his mother thought he was asleep. Mom said she was blacklisted. That Mr. Crane had called all his friends at other companies and told them not to hire her. Said she was trouble, a liar, unstable. Jesus Christ, someone muttered. We ran out of money, Tommy continued. First we stopped buying new things. Then we sold stuff. Mom's jewelry, the TV, Dad's tools. Then we couldn't pay rent anymore. The landlord said he was sorry, but he had to evict us. So we packed everything we could carry and left. That was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. This child had been homeless for 3 weeks, while the man who destroyed his mother's life probably played golf and slept in a bed worth more than most people's cars. Mom tries to get food at the shelters, Tommy said. But there's not always enough. She makes sure I eat. She always makes sure I eat. But I'm not stupid. I know she's starving. I can see her getting thinner. Her clothes don't fit right anymore. He looked down at the airplane, and a single tear rolled down his cheek. Dad gave me this kit the week before he deployed. He said we'd build it together when he got back, and we did kind of. Mom helped me finish it after the funeral. She said Dad was watching from heaven, helping my hand stay steady. He took a shaky breath. I think Dad would understand. I think he'd want me to sell it if it meant Mom could eat. The silence that followed was deafening. Someone stood slowly, every muscle in his body coiled tight. He'd served 2 Marines, 2 tours in Iraq. He'd come home with shrapnel in his leg and ghosts in his head. The group had saved him, given him a brotherhood when he had nothing else. And he'd seen too many brothers come home to nothing, to a country that thanked them for their service and then forgot they existed. He reached into his vest, pulled out his wallet, and placed every bill he had into Tommy's small hands. $237. Keep the Mustang, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Your dad would want you to have it. He'd want you to remember him every time you look at it. The others did the same, emptying their pockets until Tommy's hands overflowed with cash. Over 1,000 appeared in those small, trembling hands. Tommy's eyes went wide. I can't. This is too much. It's not enough. Someone said softly, not nearly enough, but it's a start. Take it to your mom. Get food. Get a motel room for a few nights. Get whatever you need. But someone wasn't done. His jaw was set, his eyes hard as flint. He stood, turned to his companions. Cruel wants to take a ride. They all knew that look. They'd seen it before. The night they defended a battered woman from her ex-husband who'd violated a restraining order. The day they'd stopped a loan shark from burning down a family's restaurant. The time they'd surrounded a school bus when gang members tried to intimidate kids for walking through their territory. The group had their own code, their own justice. They didn't start trouble, but they damn sure finished it. Someone, the youngest and largest of them, grinned. "I was hoping you'd say that." "Get your mom," someone told Tommy. "We'll be back in a few hours. Find a safe place to stay tonight, somewhere with a phone. Can you do that?" Tommy nodded, still staring at the money like it was a miracle he didn't quite believe in. "Good. We've got some business to attend to." The engines roared back to life, thunder given mechanical form. The group pulled out, leaving Tommy standing there with enough money to survive and a hope he hadn't felt in weeks. In the cab of his bike, someone pulled out his phone. Another did the same. They had connections, not the kind that Maxwell Crane had, but the kind that mattered. Former military buddies, a lawyer who owed them a favor, a journalist who specialized in exposing corporate corruption, and a PI who could dig up dirt on anyone. By the time they reached downtown, they had a file building. 3 other women who'd complained about Crane, 2 who'd been paid settlements with NDAs attached, 1 who tried to sue and been crushed by Meridian's legal team. Phone records that showed patterns of calls right before women's careers suddenly ended. Emails that HR had thought were deleted, but weren't. A digital trail of cruelty and abuse of power. Meridian Properties occupied the top 3 floors of the Sterling Tower downtown. All glass and steel and arrogance. The building gleamed in the afternoon sun, a monument to wealth built on the backs of people like Sarah Miller. The receptionist's face went pale when 6 group members walked through the lobby like a thunderstorm given human form. They didn't run, didn't shout. They just walked with the confidence of people who knew they were right and didn't give a damn who disagreed. "We're here to see Maxwell Crane," someone said. It wasn't a request. "Do you have an appointment?" the receptionist started, her hand already moving towards security. Now, someone's voice dropped to something cold and absolute. Something in his eyes made her reach for the phone instead. Her hands shook as she dialed. Security showed up. 2 rent-a-cops with pot bellies and attitudes. One reached for his radio. Another smiled, and it wasn't friendly. "You really want to do this? We're not leaving until we talk to Crane. You can make this easy, or you can make it memorable. Your call." The guards looked at each other, looked at the 6 who'd faced down worse than mall cops. Made a smart decision. "3rd floor," one muttered. "Corner office." They found Crane in his corner office. Windows overlooking the city he'd helped reshape, helped hollow out. The office was obscene in its luxury. Persian rugs, leather furniture, a desk that probably cost more than Sarah Miller had earned in 6 months, abstract art on the walls, the kind rich people bought to prove they were cultured. He was on a call, laughing about a golf game, feet up on his desk. When his door opened without warning. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, swinging his legs down and standing. His face flushed red. Security. Someone walked to the desk and placed something on its polished surface. The model airplane, the P-51 Mustang with its red body and silver wings, slightly battered from being loved by a child. "You know, a woman named Sarah Miller." Crane's eyes flickered just for a second with recognition. Then the shutters came down, the executive mask sliding into place. "I don't know what you're talking about, and you need to leave before I have you arrested for trespassing." "Yes, you do." Someone stepped forward. She was the only woman in their crew, and often the most frightening when she needed to be. Her voice was ice. "I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request." "I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request." Crane's face went from red to white. "What do you want? Money? How much?" The group looked at each other, and another actually laughed. A sound like grinding metal. "You still don't get it. We don't want your money, you piece of trash." Someone leaned across the desk, his hands flat on the surface. "Sarah Miller gets her job back. Full pay, benefits, back pay for every single day she's been out of work. Those other women you blacklisted, same deal. Every single one of them. And you? He smiled. And it was the coldest thing Maxwell Crane had ever seen. You resign today, effective immediately. You issue a public apology for creating a hostile work environment. And you make a donation to the women's shelter on 5th Street. 6 figures minimum. Maybe 7 if you're feeling generous, which you should be, considering we're giving you a choice instead of just burying you. You can't force me to. We're not forcing anything, another said, softly, dangerously. We're giving you a choice. Do the right thing. Walk away with some dignity, or watch your whole world come down around you. Because we don't bluff. We don't negotiate. And you sure as hell don't forget. Someone cracked his knuckles, the sound loud in the office. We've already sent copies of everything to our lawyer. Anything happens to us, to Sarah Miller, to her kid, to anyone connected to this, it all goes public automatically. You'll be done. Not just here, everywhere. Every news outlet, every social media platform. Your name will be synonymous with sexual predator and corporate corruption. Your wife will know. Your kids will know. Your parents, your friends, everyone at your country club. We'll make sure of it. The silence stretched like wire about to snap. Crane looked from one face to another, searching for weakness, finding none. These weren't people he could intimidate or buy off. These were people who decided he was a problem that needed solving. And if I refuse? Someone picked up the airplane, turning it slowly in his hands. Then we make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are. Starting with the military veterans networks. You know, people who might take it personally that you destroyed a fallen soldier's widow and left his kid homeless. Then the media. Then your board of directors. Then everyone else. He turned toward the door. You've got until 5. After that, we start making calls. They walked out the way they'd come in. Boots echoing on marble, leaving Maxwell Crane standing alone in his glass tower with the weight of his sins finally pressing down. Behind them, they could hear him already on the phone, his voice shaking. By evening, the news was spreading like wildfire. An anonymous whistleblower had exposed a pattern of harassment and retaliation at Meridian Properties. The vice president had resigned, citing personal reasons. 4 women, including Sarah Miller, had been rehired with full compensation, formal apologies, and promotion opportunities. The company pledged sweeping policy reforms, mandatory training, and donated $500,000 to local charities supporting victims of workplace harassment and homeless veterans' families. The board of directors issued a statement condemning Crane's actions. His name was scrubbed from the company website. His corner office was emptied by the end of business. The glass tower he'd ruled from no longer had a place for him. When the group returned to that railroad crossing, the sun was setting gold and amber, painting the industrial wasteland in colors too beautiful for such a broken place. Sarah stood now, tears streaming down her face. Tommy clutched against her side. She was still thin, still weak, but there was light in her eyes again, the light of someone who'd been drowning and suddenly felt solid ground beneath her feet. Someone dismounted and handed the boy his airplane. You were right, someone said gently. It flies real good. Tommy held the Mustang tight, then looked up at the group with eyes that had found their light again. My dad always said group members were heroes. He had a friend who was a member back before he enlisted. He said members look after people who can't look after themselves. Someone laughed, a sound that didn't match his intimidating size. Nah, kid. We're just people who remember what it's like to need someone to care. Sarah stepped forward, her voice breaking. I don't know how to thank you. You gave us our lives back. I got a call an hour ago. I start back at work on Monday with a raise, and they're paying me for the time I lost. We can get an apartment again. Tommy can go back to school. I can. She broke down completely, and someone moved forward to hold her while she sobbed. You don't owe us anything, someone said quietly. You just survive. You build a good life for that boy. You remember his father. And if you ever see someone else in trouble, you help them. That's how this works. That's how we make the world a little less terrible. They shared pizza that night, sitting on the curbs and crates in that forgotten corner of the industrial district. The group, the mother, and the boy who'd been willing to sell his last connection to his father for love. Tommy told them stories about his dad, about the day they'd started building the Mustang, about how his father used to do silly voices when he read bedtime stories. The group listened and laughed and shared their own stories of brothers lost and found. The last light painted everything gold. The motorcycles, the fence, the small airplane standing proud on Tommy's knee. Wings catching the dying sun like it was ready to fly after all. Someone pulled out his phone and showed Sarah pictures of his daughter, who was studying to be a lawyer. When she graduates, I'll send her your way. Pro bono work, if you want to pursue anything legal against that bastard. We've also got connections with veteran services, another added. Better ones than what you'd find on your own. We'll make sure you get everything your husband's sacrifice entitled you to. Every benefit, every program. You're not alone anymore. For just a moment, in that industrial wasteland where hope had seemed like a foreign concept, the world felt like it had justice. After all, not the kind that came from courts and lawyers, but the kind that came from people who gave a damn. As the sky darkened and stars began to appear, Tommy looked up at someone. Will I see you again? Someone smiled, and it was genuine this time. Yeah, kid, you'll see us. We check in on our own. You're part of the family now. The boy nodded solemnly, understanding in some deep way that he'd been adopted by something bigger than himself. A brotherhood that didn't care about blood or background, only about doing right by people when the world did them wrong. The group mounted their bikes as the streetlights flickered on. The engines rumbled to life, a sound that no longer seemed threatening, but protective. Like the growl of a guardian watching over its territory. They rode out into the night, leaving behind a woman who could breathe again, and a child who didn't have to sell his treasures to survive. Somewhere above them, maybe Tommy's father was watching. And maybe, just maybe, he was proud. Not just of his son's sacrifice, but of the rough men in leather who'd answered a little boy's prayer when heaven seemed too far away to hear. If this story touched you, if it reminded you that courage can come from the most unexpected places, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Sometimes all it takes is one act of defiance against cruelty to restore someone's faith in humanity. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done in someone's place? Because sometimes the bravest thing we can do is stand up when everyone else looks away. Sometimes justice doesn't come from a courtroom or a badge. It comes from people who refuse to let cruelty win. And sometimes the roughest exteriors hide the biggest hearts. Remember, we're all just one bad breakaway from meeting someone to believe in us. Be that someone when you can. Because kindness isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing in the world. This thing soars magnificently. Well, not actually, but imagination fills the void. My father and I would mimic jet engines. Then he ceased forever, throat working hard, kneeling down, leather creaking beneath him. The child's eyes, dark brown and haunted in a way that pierced deeply, gazed up. Close up, he noticed the boy was cleaner than his garments suggested. Someone still cared, even when they couldn't care for themselves. Why are you selling this, Tommy?